Hey yo, what is up? Welcome to Ninja Geek Games. I am very excited to tell you about the upcoming Kickstarter Feralis Obscure Lands from Dear Game Studios. This is a two-player card game that promises both deck construction and some customizing, where you take on the role of one of the many gods of Feralis at war with one another. Rather than fight each other directly, the gods make use of creatures within their domain that can take to battle in one of two forms. Each god can also call upon divine skills to support creatures in defeating their foe, and the creatures you call upon all have a variety of skills and abilities that affect gameplay. Lastly, the game has an awesome mechanic for how creatures and divine skills are brought into play, and we'll look at that a bit later. During the game, you'll need to play your creatures at the right time in order to develop and create powerful combinations to defeat your opponent by whittling down their god's life points. Note that this is just a prototype, so components could be subject to change, but let's take a look at what we're expecting. The game comes with 4 pre-constructed decks, each representing the minions of one of the god factions: Skriel, Morale, Valcom and Gamora. Your chosen god for each faction, deemed an Aesyr, is represented by a lone card that has a unique ability, the number and value of catalyst tokens that you start the game with, and the categories and maximum value of divine skills that you can select. Each of the Aesyr's abilities are vastly different and include passive effects such as gaining life points on death of your creatures, or one-time abilities termed one-shots that are powerful but, as the name suggests, can only be used once per game. Catalysts are a type of resource where the number and value of these tokens you start the game with are dictated by the Aesyr you represent during the game, and their use allows you to bring your creatures or divine skills into play earlier than expected. As for the divine skills, these are powerful abilities that can be used in the game. There are 8 different skill categories, and the cards within each category all have different cost values. When selecting divine skills during setup, you can only choose from those categories which your Aesyr allows, and the total cost value of chosen skill cards cannot exceed what your Aesyr dictates, so you'll need to choose wisely depending on the tactics you wish to employ during the game. The faction of god you choose will lead to a particular path of strategy you need to employ based on your unique ability, catalyst resources and the creatures in your deck, but the divine skills allow you to tweak this. As an example, some of the skills delay the time the opponents can put creatures into play or speed up yours, as well as causing damage or destroying creatures completely. The most powerful ability, the higher its cost. So, do you play with only a few but expensive powerful divine skills, or a full house of cheaper skills, or a mixture of the two? Therefore, you can utilise different strategies with the same faction based on the divine skills that you decide to take into battle. Each of the 4 factions comes with a pre-constructed deck consisting of some weird and wonderful creatures at your disposal. Now, one of the innovative mechanisms of Feralis is that each creature card comes in 2 forms called the Awakening or Call form. The call form of a creature is represented by this symbol. Each creature card shows its health and constitution being either physical, corrupted or shadow type. There is a speed and attack value used for battles and an area for special abilities. Now, if you fully rotate the card, then you reveal its awakening form, which is a more powerful and destructive version of the creature. Depending on your faction and the creature, the awakening form can include more health, an evolution of constitution, or changes in its attack stats and abilities. As an added level of tactics, you can choose to play the creature cards from your hand in either the call or the awakening form. However, if played in the weaker call form, on defeat they return to you in the awakening form to be played again later. But if the creature is ever played in its awakening form, on defeat it then goes into your graveyard for the remainder of the game. Now, another cool mechanic I haven't mentioned yet is how creature cards and divine skills are played from hand or used for their abilities. Firstly, divine skills you selected for the game start on your player board, where each has development counter placed on them equal to their incubation time. Creature cards start the game face down in your deck, where each round you are able to draw cards to hand. Then each turn you are able to play 1 creature card from hand into an incubation area where the card sits facing you, again placing a development counter matching the creature's incubation time. Now, when playing creature cards from your hand into your incubation area, they sit facing you in these card stands. Remember, you can choose which form the creature is played, call or awakening, and although the opponent can determine this, they will have no idea as to which these creatures are. So, this leaves us with an intriguing part of the game. How are creatures put into the battle area, and how are divine skills activated? Well, let me tell you. At the start of each turn, there is a loading phase where you decrease the value of the development counters on each of your skill cards and creatures in incubation. Think of this as charging a skill and growing a creature. If, as a result of this, the incubation time on a development counter reaches 0, the effect of the skill card can be used and the creature can be placed in the battlefield. Once a skill is activated, it can now be used at any time during the game. You can use it immediately or in later turns, where upon use you simply carry out the action and place the development counter back onto the skill card for incubation, enabling it to be used again later. As for the creature cards, they spend their time in the battlefield attacking opponents' creatures, god and or using special abilities. So, about those catalyst resources. As mentioned, each god allows you to start the game with different numbers and values of catalyst tokens. These are an extremely valuable and important commodity, and when used they allow you to reduce the development counter attached to any card by the value of that token. You can use any number of catalyst tokens in a given turn, but each card can only receive 1 token per turn. If you use a token with a higher value than the development counter, then the excess is lost. Also, they are in limited supply, so must be used at the right moments to gain maximum benefits. However, some creature abilities allow you to gain used tokens back into your supply, whereas others increase the value of tokens whilst the creature is active, so good planning can allow big turns with complex combinations of activating skills and playing creatures. So, we've talked about divine skills and deploying creatures into the battlefield, but what exactly do creatures do? Well, lots actually. They each have abilities that can increase the stats of other creatures, they gain use catalyst tokens, bend the game rules in some way to name a few, as well as each having certain abilities typical of the faction you are playing. Creatures can also choose to attack the opponent's creatures as well as the Aesyr god directly, and can also be used as a formidable shield to protect your own Aesyr. To attack the opponent's Aesyr, you simply reduce the life points by the value of your creature's attack. But to attack an enemy creature is a little more intricate. First, you need to compare the speed values on the attacking and defending creature with the fastest creature striking first. This means there is a possibility that the enemy doesn't get to attack back if defeated. Next, you need to determine the type of attack, of which there are 3 types, and the enemy's constitution. This is because if they don't match, the damage value is halved, unless the enemy's constitution is physical, where it always takes the full brunt of damage regardless. If the enemy survives, then they also get to attack back. When a creature card is defeated in battle, it is either placed back into your incubation area to be played in its more powerful and vengeful awakening form, or, if already in that form, placed into your graveyard. If an Aesyr's life points ever reach 0, then the opposing player is declared the winner. So why bother attacking an enemy creature if you can just bypass it to attack the Aesyr instead? Well, I'm glad I asked. Some enemy creatures have some underhand and sneaky abilities that can prevent you from developing your engine, so to speak, and therefore must be eliminated. If played at the correct time, one creature can be the focus of a potential huge combination of stat increases, but other creatures potentially causing a catastrophic event to completely render you helpless for a turn. Also, instead of being played normally, a creature can take on the stoic role of a defender. Here, the creature takes one of a limited number of defender tokens that results in it being forcefully the focus of all enemy attacks until defeated. This comes at a cost, as the creature is now unable to attack, so you'll need to decide carefully as to which creature to assign this task. So, do you give the defender token to a creature with the highest health, or a creature with a constitution currently unmatched by an enemy attack, perhaps forcing your opponent to play creatures they wouldn't have otherwise? Or, and this is my favourite tactic, give the defender role to a creature with the highest speed and find ways to quickly buff its attack value. This means the opponent is forced to attack this defender but is outmatched in speed, so you can get an attack in first, potentially defeating their creatures without retaliation or forcing them to look towards other means to bypass this. Feralis Obscure Lands has some very novel mechanics that I think work brilliantly to link some fantastic combinations of card play, attacks and forward planning. Each faction plays completely differently, and although there are some overlap of skills, these are outweighed by the faction playstyles and allowable divine skill combos. The game has this subtle engine building persona that will change over the tides of battle, that is finely attuned to the clever play of cards at just the right time. The game is not simply about quick attacks of independence, but instead developing a field of symbiont creatures that are intuitively linked. The theme and artwork are just wonderful, and it really draws you into this dark and disturbing world of horror and fantasy. The game also boasts a deck construction variant where you can include a mixture of creature and breeds to take into battle, as well as rules for 4-player games. The game will always provide you with tough decisions for which creature to play and in which form, when to use catalyst to speed up incubation, or if now is the right time to play defender tokens. Regardless, Feralis promises a rich and deep game that I am very much looking forward to its Kickstarter release. So thank you for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. This is Ninja Geek Games. Cheers.